What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? My English teacher in the 11th grade was sleeping with the whole girls' basketball team in exchange for straight A's. I actually failed English that year, but when that made the news, my school said I didn't have to go anymore because he wasn't doing the grading properly. Everyone who had his class got a B. Sounds like the team took one for you. One year in exams days they were trying to add a new method to prevent cheating, where a man from the administration comes to every class before every exam and collects students' phones while sticking a sticker with a number on each phone and giving the same sticker to the student so he can get his phone after school without anyone taking someone else's phone that looks alike or something. This was working at first and a bit preventing cheating, until one day some guy sneaked into our high school and came as the man who collects the phones while he wasn't. He stole the whole high school phones and went LOL. Holy shit, haha, imagine the thrill of going classroom to classroom, in disguise, stealing phones. You reckon the real inspector was in on it? Probably no, there were multiple inspectors so that everyone starts their exams on time. If a real inspector came and asked people for their phones and they said someone else came and took them, he'd think that another inspector just collected from his class by mistake, and that's what happened. He just said, "Oh, alright, good luck with the exam," and went to the next class. My middle school banned hugging and hand-holding during course changes because it blocked the hall. In protest, all the 8th graders stood up and hugged each other during their lunch period. A bunch of students got detention. Made the cover of the Charlotte Observer. Edit, thanks for the rewards all. I don't think I've gotten more THAN 100 likes or rewards before, but please spend your money on other things. People are in need this holiday season. Dude, everybody else talking about pedos and murder, and your big scandal is a big group hug. Freshman year, a junior accused the PE teacher of sexually assaulting her after hours in the locker room. He was put on leave and eventually got off on a technicality. Senior year, there was a freak snowstorm in April, during which the quietest and nicest stoner in our class went missing. A day later they found his car in a ditch, and a week later, when the snow melted, they found his body. He'd crashed and, in his presumed high AF state, gotten out to walk for help with no coat on. He eventually found a telephone pole and sat down against it to rest, and was believed to have frozen to death in the storm. Seeing his mom at her only child's funeral still haunts me. That's really sad, can't find other words. Some students broke into a local elderly reverend's home to rob him, thinking he was away. He sadly wasn't, and they proceeded to bludgeon him and his wife to death while they were sleeping with baseball bats and beer bottles. They were caught pretty quickly, and although their names legally couldn't be published because they were minors, everyone including the local media knew who committed the crime. Media caused a circus at our school for weeks, harassing any student for comment. Many did because they thought it was cool. Although these three kids, 13-14-15, were known to cause trouble, no one ever suspected they would be capable of a double homicide. Edit, included above link. This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The HSAG teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it and the parents consented. Our HS was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips, and the AG teacher went along as a chaperone when his GF was a senior. They shared a hotel room, when I believe the student was still technically a 17-year-old minor. At the time I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farmhand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down, but by the time I made it to HS we had a different AG teacher. They got married and had a child, divorced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Their kid goes to our HS now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. Of course, in many states 16 is the age of consent. But almost everywhere, as far as I'm aware, has laws that state people in positions of authority, teachers, coach, policemen, clergy, etc., Cannot do anything to those under their care, an abuse of authority equivalent to forcing someone. We had a computer teacher / football assistant coach who was just blasted all day, had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work, but was the cousin of the superintendent so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is that the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on as super for another 2 years. A kid in my senior year short story class, who sat directly behind me, was charged with the stabbing, beheading and burning of one of his friends / drug dealer. I remember the day like it was yesterday, sitting in my short story class when my teacher came in tears because she just heard the news. Students didn't find out about it until later. I actually have a friend who testified in his trial because he purchased the murdering materials at the hardware store she worked at. Crazy, man. Some highlights. The chorus teacher got caught looking at Lolita porn on his school computer. This kid had nudes of his ex that his friend sent to a bunch of people in school, but he was 18 and she was 14 or 15, so he got expelled and I believe he was charged with distributing child pornography. We had a whole assembly because of it where the cops came and told us they could see everything on our phones. A kid in my grade and another girl, same girl as in the story above, actually, had sex in the bathroom. I learned about it from my band teacher. My graphics teacher was married to my maths teacher, and one night he killed her during a domestic dispute. She was apparently having an affair and started taunting him about it in an argument while waving a fire poker at him. He grabbed it off her, hit her over the head and killed her. He was sent to prison for manslaughter, not murder, as the court accepted there was no premeditation. My mum was also a teacher at the school and friends with both of them, so it had a big impact on my family as well as the school.